Let us introduce the topic on selective attention. Soumya is driving her car on the road. For Soumya to drive safely, she has to concentrate on a lot of factors such as other cars on the road, the stop signal, pedestrians on the road, and while Soumya has to drive through all this, she has to also concentrate on her driving skills. She requires to exert some mental efforts or concentration while driving. This is what human beings require while doing any task. They require the mental efforts and the concentration while performing a task. What does cognitive psychologist call this? This is called as attention. So, we can define attention as the mental effort or concentration that people require while performing a task. So, can we define how much of attention is required? Okay, let us consider an example. Look at a glass filled with water. Let us call this water attention. Consider a straw being activity number 1. Some amount of water is being used by the straw, which means that some amount of attention is used for activity 1. Now the second activity, that is the second straw, is put in the jar. Some amount of water is used by the second straw. That is, some amount of attention is used for activity 2. The third straw is put into the glass. This is the third activity. And the amount of water is again used for this activity. If the next activity is added, there is no water, that means there is no attention, and this activity will get no attention because all the attention has been used by the other activities. In case of Soumya, while driving her car, she had to concentrate on the road, signals, pedestrians, cyclists, potholes. So we can say the amount of attention required at any given time depends partly on the complexity of the situation. Now Soumya is again driving her car, but today is a Sunday. Does she have to exert the same concentration as before? On Sunday, the traffic would be less compared to other working days. To make Soumya's driving more easy, let us imagine we have smooth roads with no potholes. In such a condition, Soumya need not concentrate or need not exert all her mental efforts or concentration on the road and the traffic around her. Let us also consider that Soumya has recently learned her driving and needs to concentrate on changing the gears. If this was the case, Soumya being a new driver and the road have heavy traffic and potholes, then in such a situation, Soumya had to exert more mental efforts and concentration while driving. So we can also say attention depends on one's level of expertise of a given task. What we understand looking at Soumya, that Only a certain amount of her mental energy is devoted to this task. Soumya has to confront to all the incoming information like the traffic signal, the vehicle behind her, the vehicles in front of her, the pedestrians walking, etc. Let us go back when Soumya was learning to drive. She had to learn many operations like acceleration, using the clutch, shifting the gears, using side light indicators. She also had to pay attention to the road and check the rear view mirrors. All these demanded and consumed her mental resources. Other kinds of cognitive tasks, such as talking, listening to radio, the energy devoted to these tasks would be very less. After a few days of practice, and when Soumya has learned to drive and use all the mechanisms in her car, she need not exert all her mental energy in doing these operations. This leads to more cognitive resources of Soumya being available to devote to other tasks like listening to music, talking to friends in a car. What we see in Soumya is when she was a new driver and concentrating on her driving skills, her attention towards other activities were less. This is called as selective attention. The term selective attention refers to the fact that we usually focus our attention on one or few tasks or events rather than many. Let us look at another example of a girl looking at group of people. If one of the person in the group had a different color like red, then the girl's attention would be towards the red color. Now the question is, how do cognitive psychologists study what information people process about things to which they are not paying attention to? Let us take the case of Soumya again. If she is told not to pay attention to the hoardings of the jewelry which is on the left, then there is a high chance that she will pay more attention to it. Is there a solution to this issue? The solution to this issue is dichotic listening task. In this task, Soumya is listening to an audio tape with two different messages recorded so as to be heard simultaneously in opposite ears using a set of headphones. Soumya is listening to two different messages at the same time. Soumya is asked to shadow, which means to repeat aloud one of them. For Soumya, this is a demanding task because information is presented at a rapid rate. Now Soumya has to hear both the messages. And once she has heard both the messages, the task is over. Once the task is over, Soumya is asked to repeat the messages, which she was asked to shadow. The logic of the experiment is a person must concentrate on the message which was being shadowed. That means which has been asked to remember and repeat. Since the shadowing task is a demanding task, it requires a great deal of mental resources. Therefore, very few resources are available to process information from the unattended message.